Go.
Well, I would like to welcome everyone to the March 16th, 2022 Advisory Committee to the 109 Board meeting. Thank you very much for joining, and we'll call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the February 16th, 2022 minutes. Has everyone had the opportunity to review the minutes? If we all have, do I have a motion to approve?
Move.
I have a motion by Mr. Stahler. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Blue. Any additional discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda tonight is a presentation by Mr. Brian Barnes. He is here to speak about the U of L composting program.
Hello, can everybody hear me okay?
Sure,
Yes.
Brian.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks so much for the invitation. I am actually at the site of the U of L Community Composting Project right now.
Weather.
Yeah, it's great weather for it for sure. Let me just walk over here. You can kind of see what we have going on out here. I know a few people have seen this thing before. I mean, Pete, of course, and some others. And hi to a bunch of, what at least in the past have been friendly faces. Good to see folks. Anyway, we have compost piles out here that we're making primarily with two sources. That's material from Heine Brothers Coffee, which supports this program. It's an extension of the 2005 nonprofit many of you may have been familiar with, Breaking New Grounds. That's where I learned to compost. I used to work at Wild Oats Markets, and we joined Heine Brothers in that effort a long time ago. That thing hadn't been around now for since 2012, but the U of L Community Composting Project has been here composting various sources of material since 2010. We began being inspected and certified by the city, I believe in 2015 or 16. We give all of the compost that we make away to the community. That's typically somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 tons of compost that we end up with at the end of the year that we've been giving away throughout the year. People just come out and get it. We also employ students. Those are the main folks who do this work. I'm a faculty member at U of L in the philosophy department. I work in the sustainability program, and this is one of my sustainability projects. So we employ student workers to use vehicles that we have everything out here is reused. We have almost no budget. We've never really had much of a budget. All of our money goes to paying the students to learn about composting and to do this work. So anyway, we get vehicles that the university has thrown away. We get them up and running again. You may have seen some of those vehicles around town at the park behind the Heine Brothers, and someone lugging 5-gallon buckets of coffee grounds into the vehicle. That's my group. We pick up 52 weeks a year. The compost never stops. We have other community partners as well. Blackacre Nature Conservancy has been working with us for quite a long time. We support their community garden with compostables out there, which if you haven't seen their 300-plot community garden, it's quite nice. So that's the U of L side. We also, there are a couple of other things, I guess. We also have a community garden out here. We have some sustainability technologies for people to learn from. So rainwater capture. We have an aquaponics system that's starting. We have vermiculture, which we've also had out here for about 10 years. All of the produce of all of these technologies, if you will, go to the community, and we also do training. We have a volunteer day every Sunday of the year from noon to 2. Come on out. Nobody needs to sign up for it. Anybody can show up. I mean, if you're going to bring a group, it's nice to know. But there's always somebody out here to show you how to compost, to help you set up compost at your house. to give you a shovel or a pitchfork and let you help us make compost. If you want to get compost, we have coffee bags that Heine Brothers also donates to our effort. And we, you know, you can bring your own containers. You can fill up coffee bags with compost or vermicompost and take it away for your own applications. I think that's most of it for the U of L project. And we would love anybody to come out. I mean, we love everybody, groups, individuals, whatever. We do only have a limited amount of compost at a time. We don't use machines. This is a carbon negative operation. It's intended that way because poor people don't have machines. When I was with Breaking New Grounds, one of the things that we were trying to do was make sure that people could learn how to compost no matter what their situations were. And so I'm trying to continue that effort out here. And so it's everything's by hand, but that also means sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get your free compost. You know, some people complain. Anyway, that's our situation at the U of L Community Composting Project. If somebody wanted to support it, I mean, we can certainly use money. You can donate directly to the University of Louisville sustainability efforts. You can put a note in there that is for the Community Composting Project, and it'll go into the pile that helps us recruit and work with students year round. We also have a couple of other community partners, a rotating cast of restaurants, and 1400 Willow, we've been working with for quite a long time, that condominium community, and a few others that are on our U of L sustainability website. Most of them are listed there. We are limited here tremendously by student labor. We just only have so much, and it is also an educational operation first and foremost. And so that does limit some of our ability to work with community partners from time to time, which brings me to the Louisville Compost Co-op. We started picking up compost in 2018. Louisville Compost Co-op is a for-profit entity that is intended to supplement where there are no serious municipal or otherwise composting efforts in town, except for, of course, the institutional composting that's available through West Rock and others. You know, and they work with U of L and they work with JCPS and they work with some others. And so there is very large scale composting, of course, but even on U of L's campus, many smaller outlets get left behind. And so, you know, we're here for those smaller outlets. And so the Louisville Compost Co-op is a subscription service. We hire non-students, we hire just regular folks from out in the community to drive our vehicles. You may have seen some of our stenciled vehicles around town advertising the service. We give folks a red 5-gallon bucket. Some of you may have seen these at your place even, or at your neighbors. We give a red 5-gallon bucket, and then you fill it up with compostables at your home. It has a gasket seal on it, and you can put it out front, and someone will come by once a week, swap it out for an empty bucket, and then that material is brought back to the U of L Community Composting Project or one of its partner sites, like Blackacre, for example, and it's composted. U of L or Louisville Compost Co-op pays U of L for the labor that it uses from students, so that is another regular source of income from the community. But of course, Compost Co-op also has its own employees that work to process the compostables. There could be pickups. Right now, we're picking up 5 days a week in the community. We have done 7 days a week in the past. We'll probably do more. We have around 270 members right now, plus those are residential members. Maybe we have another half dozen institutional members. Angels Envy Distillery is one, for example. Yeah, that's the Compost Co-op. And these two operate together through the site that you just saw primarily. Our vehicles are all stored here. Everyone starts their day and ends their day here when they work for either organization. And I was asked to bring an update maybe by Pete. And so I've done that. And I am delighted to answer any questions that anyone has about either of these projects. And I also want to encourage people to come out and join us and also to sign up. You can go to louisvillecompost.com and you can sign up to have the red bucket brought to your house. You can also send us an email if you want your business to get the red bucket treatment or something similar through Louisville Compost Co-op. And if you want to talk to me about what's possible through U of L, we can do that too. The only other thing I should mention is that Louisville Compost Co-op members also get compost delivered to them. We just take it out on the route. It's not any set amount. Just people reach out to us and say, hey, can I get some amount of compost? And we typically take it to them. Sometimes it takes a few weeks. But, you know, I mean, labor's tight out here. What can I say? So happy to answer any questions. Thanks for this opportunity.
To interject that Don and I moved in December, and that
Hey,
is
Sarah.
not a time to start a backyard compost bin. So we signed up for this service, and it's really, really good. And we still haven't gotten around to building the compost bin because the service is so good. And I'm a little embarrassed about that, but only a little.
Well, I'm just delighted. You just made my day, Sarah Lynn. Thank you so much for that. Glad you remember, glad you like it. So,
Thank you.
thanks. Absolutely.
Mr. Barnes, I have two questions for you.
Please.
Number one, you're looking for partners to assist financially. What is your biggest need currently? And then number two is, do you report to the city the amount of material that you take in so that we can qualify that as diversion?
Good,
Sure.
Bruce.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and answer the second one first. We do that. Since we've been sort of certified by the city, I've been reporting to InfoTrack, and I was late this year, but I did get it in very recently, as a matter of fact. The compost co-op number is included in the U of L community composting number. We could always break that out. But that's all included. That all gets reported together. In terms of the first question, from my point of view, what we really need is probably some advertising, another site, maybe the capacity to work with larger loads. Our entire system right now, you know, we just made it up, and it's all designed so that one employee, which is typically what I have on any given route, so that one employee can pick everything up. And sometimes these employees are, you know, they're older folks or younger folks or thinner folks, or I don't know. At any rate, sometimes the stuff's super heavy. You know, one of these 5-gallon buckets might be between 30 and 40 pounds once it's full of material. And so, you know, doing a lot of those in a day, especially with corporate partners, they want big containers. You know, we have to give them a lot of little containers because I can't ask some of these folks to put the giant containers into the vehicle, and I wouldn't be able to do it myself either. So we're limited by those issues. We would be delighted to talk with someone about future planning. Frankly, we are just doing our best to keep ahead of everything. We get a lot of correspondence every week. I'm working here at the university. I'm working at other universities. My partner, who didn't join us tonight, his name's Sean Rafe. He's a medical student, and he's in the lab right now. And neither one of us have taken any money out of this thing. I have to say that because of his work at the university. Like, we're just trying to keep it going. And so if business partners were interested in helping us plan for the future, talk about possibilities, more land, better vehicles, of course, more customers, which would then lead to a need for more employees, because we're pretty much maxed out on everything. I'm often working. Sean's working when he can make, you know, an hour here and there. So I hope that clarifies.
Is it a stagnant process to where you're not ingesting oxygen into the composting? Or do you have to actually turn it by hand?
We turn it by hand. We turn it by hand weekly at least.
Well, I commend you. It sounds like you've got a great effort going on.
Oh, thank
So
you.
thank you very much.
I really appreciate that. We wanted, again, we wanted to be something that looked like other people could replicate. As far as we're concerned, more composting is better. However it happens in the community. If something like this even pushes an institutional effort somewhere with Metro government to do more residential composting, we're not against it. But thank you for your support and your interest. I appreciate that.
You know, my
Any other-
teacher's read on it is the young people whom I have seen working there on Sunday feel good about what they're doing. And
They
I
do.
think that's really important.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we get a lot of dedicated volunteers who really dig the effort. I didn't mean that, but
Unintended.
I like that. Yeah.
You did.
At any rate, we get, people keep coming back year after year. People offer us their expertise on our little garden and on our various projects. And we feel like we have a nice spot in the community, even if we never grow an inch from here. So thanks for that.
Any
Did I
other
answer your
questions from committee members?
Thank you.
Would this Sunday be a good time to come get compost?
I don't have a lot right now.
Okay.
I've probably got 3 or 4 yards that'll need to last a couple of weeks. But if somebody wanted to come and get it, nobody's got a finger on it or anything.
Okay.
Of course, everything has to be sifted out here, as you know.
Yep.
But people, a lot of folks want us to sift, and it is one of the most labor-intensive things that we do. I always suggest that you come sift. We got sifters. We just don't have the people to do it. So yeah, if people wanted to come get compost, there is some. If nothing else, you can see how long it'd be, as you've done before, Sarah Lynn, to see how long it might be until, another pile is ready. We're going to have them ready. We're going to have new piles ready about every 2 weeks, all the way through the summer. We've got them stacked up and ready because we go all winter. So we've got quite a bit working right now, and we're looking forward to giving it away as soon as anybody wants it. So
Cool. Thank you.
absolutely. Thank you.
Hey, Brian, this is Pete.
Hey, Pete.
I would be really interested in the way that we could partner up with the educational side of what you're doing.
Great.
And, if there's ideas or anything that you have, please bring them forward to us so we can consider them.
Okay.
We continually want to promote home composting,
Mhm.
particularly.
Mhm.
And the training aspect of this is beautiful. We love what you're doing.
Thank you.
So if there's any opportunity there for us to do that, or even help get the word out about what you're doing through some of our media messaging, we would certainly be interested in helping in that regard.
Well, we would love that, Pete. How do I go about making that happen? Just talk to you. Is that best way?
Yeah, Karen and I would be your contacts on that.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And I do have, I see Sarah Lynn's got the next spot, but I do have a project that I'd love to just mention since you asked I've actually got 2, really briefly. And the one that I like the most is I've trained 2 vermiculturists out here. One's a current student, one's an alum of the university. They're both really good with the red wiggler and explaining it. I get a good bit, I don't know, half dozen a year, just people reaching out to me and saying, I'm a school and I want people to learn about worms, right? And so what we were thinking was, couldn't we take this worm thing and put it in a classroom? Like have a program where some of these,
I've got 2 curricula on that.
Okay.
It
Okay.
was-
Well, I mean, we'd love to partner to put some worms in classrooms across Metro. So anyway, I'm glad that that's attractive for your consideration. The other one is we've had some apartment complexes come to us about larger projects, and none of those have worked out. But I just want to mention that in case anybody is in a situation where maybe there's a large like a multi-unit thing, because a lot of people that are making compost just go straight into that dumpster. And we'd love to help in that kind of a situation. If there was some opportunity, I don't know if public housing is a good fit for any of that, but that sort of a situation would be something we'd be interested in talking about as well. So thank you. Those are my 2.
Are we still using Rice Ottoman Treatment Center young people at the Hubbard's Lane Recycling Center or anywhere else?
We're not currently. We was actually using inmates for the longest of time. We rarely got volunteers, but with the age of COVID, we kind of stayed away from that quite a bit. And we're coming out of COVID. Maybe it's time to start to consider bringing something like that back in.
Brian, these kids have committed fairly significant crimes. They're between 16 and 18 years old.
Mhm.
Oftentimes it's a status offense of chronic truancy and stuff like that. And sometimes it's worse.
Mhm.
And they show up and they're in uniforms. They have a supervisor. Everything is yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, because they know if they screw up, they're going back and they're not going to get to be outside. And truthfully, my experience is they show up pissed off young men. And by the time they have done physical labor for you for a few hours, they are pliable, open-minded learners. And so if you want to talk about that some more, why don't you give me a holler? And because I think that would be a no-brainer place for them to come and work for you and learn how to compost.
I think that
I'd
sounds
like to send
great.
a few Republicans out there.
Beg your pardon?
I'd like to send a few Republicans out there.
Happy to educate anybody. What can I say? Sarah Lynn, when at Breaking New Grounds, we worked with former inmate labor, and I did some work with Steve Weiss at Dismas for a few years through a sustainability class with his folks over there. I think they're great to work with. I've had nothing but positives in those interactions over the years, and if we could get, I actually was talking with Sean about that just earlier in the year about wouldn't it be nice if we could find a way to get some folks in that situation to come out here. I don't know how to go about it, so I'm glad you mentioned it, and we'd love to be a site for that.
Call me. The other thing is to look into court-ordered first offenders who have to do X number of hours of community service. They don't come with a supervisor, but they do come with the threat of significant consequences if they screw up.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about whatever. I mean, I think that having a folks in a variety of situations is also educational for us out here, and I'm happy to be part of the, I don't know what the right word is a rehabilitation, but whatever.
Socialization, if nothing else.
Community service, whatever that is. Yeah, I'm happy to give it a shot. Sure.
You know how to get a hold of me?
I will. Yeah, of course. Thank you very much.
So Brian, in the end, with your educational opportunities and possibly wanting to take this on the road to schools and having a curriculum, I would like to continue that discussion. If there's any kind of financial assistance that we might be able to take to our board and request, obviously we can't say yes or no, but we can make a case and see if there's any assistance because it fits with the mission of the Waste Management District. So if we can partner, it would be really good.
Good for me, Pete. I'll reach out. I appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks
Thanks
you so
for
much.
coming too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for this opportunity, Karen, Pete. Really appreciate it. Anybody else who cares, thanks for listening. Please pass this stuff around. We need to keep this stuff out of the landfill, friends. I mean, it is the wrong thing to put these organics in the landfill. And we have methods, I mean, everybody's been talking for quite a while about recycling, even if you don't care about it like I didn't in 2003 or whatever, you still know. And people don't even know about composting. I mean, I'm constantly educating folks on this one. It's something the city needs. It's a good move, and I'm happy to be part of it, and I'm happy to support any efforts. If anybody wants to reach out to me directly through U of L, you can find me in the philosophy department. Just send me an email or through the Louisville Compost Co-op at louisvillecompost.com. So thank you again for the opportunity, friends.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. It's been very informative. Appreciate your joining us this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Burrow. I appreciate that. It's been my honor.
All right.
I'll go. Thanks, folks.
Next item on the agenda and under new business is the host agreement discussion. I would imagine you're
Please, I
going to.
beg your pardon?
I'm sorry, Sarah.
There was a beep when you spoke.
Oh, the next agenda item is a discussion regarding the host agreement. I would imagine Pete is going to take this one.
Yes, sir. So this was brought before the 109 board at its last meeting, and there is a document that is called a community host agreement, which is really it's kind of a legally binding contract between landfill operators and communities, and it just kind of it just details the relationship between the two as a landfill is in a community. That's why it's a host community agreement. So we're host to a landfill in our community. Not every county in the state has a landfill, but so that's why it's called a host community agreement. There was an agreement here with the waste management outer loop landfill since 1994, and it expired. It was a 20-year contract, and what was in there was capacity assurance, meaning that Metro was assured that it had space for its waste for a certain period of time, which was great. The district agreed not to oppose certain operations as long as the landfill followed all the governing operations. It set the outer loop service area, meaning where waste can come from. There was 96 counties in which waste came to the outer loop landfill. If anybody remembers the old garbage barges and trains, that was coming out of the Northeast, this was a way to have a little bit of control about where waste comes from into your area. You don't want your landfill to be filled up with waste from New Jersey. And that actually occurred in the eastern part of the state. 90% of the waste going to the landfill was from New Jersey. They had huge issues. So that kind of sets that service area. It set a 10-year cap of 16,000 tons. It agreed that no radioactive waste would be accepted. Financial assurances, bond, making sure that the landfill is going to be taken care of. A lot of that is regulatory anyway. Indemnification, reporting requirements, composting. They would participate in the advisory committee. Agreement to collect any kind of required licensing fees from customers. Services provided to the community and performance guarantees. One other thing that, with the radioactive waste, the landfill, I don't believe has any radioactive waste coming into it, but when you got into some of the fracking waste, it did contain low-level radioactive material that went into one of the landfills out into the state and caused some issues. So this is an important agreement, and we've kind of been sitting on it for a while there was some things going on, and recently we have decided that it's time to start having that conversation. Waste management has agreed to have that conversation. There's some differences as to whether or not that it's needed, but that's something that we need to talk about. So the board tasked the advisory committee with looking at the past agreement and advising the board on what to do. So it's really coming to you guys to say, all right, have you seen the agreement? Where do you guys think we need to go? How do you think we need to do it? Do we need to create a small committee? Because we have to watch out for, certain people could be on that committee. Other ones I wouldn't think would want to be on it because they're competitors. So we have to watch out for that. So it could be a situation where the staff negotiates it with one other person, two other people. I don't know, but that is kind of the task that's been given. So I'm going to listen for just a moment. A lot of you guys were around before I was around and was a part of the host agreement process. So you probably have ideas on which way you think it should go.
Clarifying question. Did the lawsuit get settled and is all that behind us? Are we kind of starting over? Or is that still going on?
It's settled.
Okay, good. Thank you.
How thick a document is the agreement?
It's not It's not all that big. There were 4 amendments to it, but none of those were very big. I'm thinking that we're probably less than 20 pages, I would say.
I might be able to bring it
Definitely
up.
doable, huh?
To an attorney, it's nothing.
All right, Sarah Lynn.
I'm gonna see if I can find it and check the pages.
Yeah, we've all, in our files, we all have old copies of them.
What's the date of the most recent one, Pete?
Well, the most recent one was
2008?
probably 2008 in that range.
Okay.
But as if you're looking for just the amendment doesn't carry the original agreement.
Agreed.
Well, if I could preface maybe a
2000
question, instead of somebody being asked, a lot of us have looked at this and done stuff with it in the past. Is there any motivation, or what are we looking at just to make changes? In other words, do we want to basically keep the same document? And are we talking about just a few changes, or what's our goal here, if I could ask that?
I don't think that that's a bad idea to just to kind of utilize what you've had in the past. We would have to look at it to see if there's any changes that would need to be made.
And do we have
Would
a
that be
county attorney to help?
Would that be a starting point? Just say renew the contract as is, and then let people that want to make changes say what those are, and then we just look at those.
I don't think that it's as simple as a simple renewal as is.
Okay. I don't know. I'm asking you.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that, because you have to take into consider the amendments, and some of those conditions have certainly changed.
Sandra, the unamended edition is only 13 pages long.
You're right, Sarah. That's not a big deal.
Right.
Pete, I would like to say that I would probably recuse myself from this effort, just because of post-employment agreement limitations. I don't want to have to be part of, building this agreement or voting on it. It's been so long since I read them. I don't want to have to go back to them, and I don't want to have to call my attorney.
Yeah.
So the best way to do it is just recuse myself.
To
Understood.
further clarify, if you look at the one that has all 5 amendments, it is 28 pages long. However, a half a dozen of those pages or more are signature sheets or just blank sheets. So it's just not that big of a document.
Pete, I'm kind of in the same, felt the same, but a similar situation as Bruce. Waste management is a client. So I could not, I would not be comfortable being a part of that renewal process.
Right. And I knew that we would have some of these conflicts that would come up. That's why I didn't know if really the committee wanted to have staff do the 90% of the work on this and just work with 1 or 2 committee members. That's one way to approach it.
I don't
Really
mind
think we
helping,
have-
but I
we
think
have
that
very
having
capable
somebody,
committee members that could actually participate, from Sandra and Bruce and Matt Smith and Sarah Lynn. There's several that have a background that they've been on the committee long enough to understand the need and the want of the agreement. So I would like to see 2 or 3 committee members at least be part of it if possible.
Pete, can you hear me?
Marie?
Yeah, I'm sorry. We had an emergency, and I've been away from my computer. I just came back and saw what was up on my screen. Who are you speaking with about the community host agreement?
At Waste Management?
Yes.
We haven't had that conversation yet. We've not really reached out other than at the end of the settlement agreement. We just had a statement that the landfill would be entertain a discussion about it.
Process question.
Thank you.
It's been so long. Do we take the first draft and send it to them, or do we sit down with them from the get-go? I don't even remember. Were you around, Pete?
I was not.
Uh,
I was around when maybe one of the amendments was created,
Yeah,
but
Schindler would probably remember if Greg doesn't.
yeah,
yeah, possibly even having Bob as part of the team would be a good idea. Because he was on it from both the city side. Now he's on it from the waste district side. So he kind of has a little bit, or staff side and the board side. So he probably got a little bit of a unique perspective for it.
The other thought I have is if the county attorney who was our person then is still a county attorney, her name was Susan. I might be able to figure it out. It would be good if we could have her to assist, what's his name?
She's not.
She's not there.
Susan, cannot remember her last name.
She used to live next door. Spickard.
Yep, Susan Spicker. So if the committee I don't know if we need to have a motion to, I think we do need to create a subcommittee and name members that would be a part of that to take this task on. I think that would be a benefit, and we would have to meet kind of separately and take it from there.
Well, if Sandra will do it, I'll do it.
That's a fair trade. I'll do it.
I'll do it too.
Okay, we have Sarah Lynn, Sandra Leonard, Bruce Blue, who have volunteered. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Do we have a motion to, appointees to a subcommittee to work with staff on the community host agreement?
Should we three drop out while y'all vote?
I won't be voting, so
I don't think so, Sarah.
Okay.
I don't think that's necessary. We're just creating a subcommittee.
Okay. So I guess one of us needs to do that.
one of you need to make a motion, please.
I move that we create a subcommittee to work with staff to review the host agreement, and that the committee consist of Bruce Blue and Sandra Leonard and me, Sarah Lynn Cunningham.
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Blue, motion by Ms. Cunningham, second by Mr. Blue. Any further discussion? Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Are we
Aye.
allowed to vote?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. And we have 2 abstentions on that vote. For the record.
Yes, please.
Good. Next item on the
Me as
agenda.
well, Bruce. This is Brian Slade. Me as well on the abstention. Thank you.
All right, we have 3 abstentions. The next item on the agenda are the activity reports. The residential construction demolition subcommittee. Can we get an update on that?
Yes, but I think in all honesty that what we did was some really intensive discussion, and Pete would do a much better job of talking about capture rates than I would. Pete, can you explain about capture rates and why we discussed them?
Yes, ma'am. I was just going to go through the presentation that I gave to the subcommittee, and at the end, kind of talk about where we want to go. So basically, a capture rate study is household level recycling data that would help us steer behavior change to the way that we want people to recycle. And the first thing that we need to understand is we all know that we have goals. 90% people participating in recycling programs, diverting 90% of divertible material by 2042. And the key word here is recoverable materials, and it's important to keep that in mind when you are talking about capture rates. So the questions that we have is, how do we get people to recycle more? What does it take to reduce contamination? And how much more high value recyclable materials can be captured through curbside collections? And capture rates is one of the things that more communities are kind of turning to. And why we do this as opposed to the diversion rate, which we would still do. So it allows you to see what material is being generated, how much is making it into the recycling stream, how much is making it into, how much non-recyclable material is also ending up in the recycle cart. So using and getting that data, we can chart and track household behavior patterns, identify the greatest opportunities for behavior change. But probably the biggest and most important part of this, it gives us a baseline so that we can measure the impact of our outreach campaigns so that we can boost recovery and decrease our contamination.
Clarifying question, please.
Yes.
The first box, it says the last clause is that it analyzes how much non-recyclable materials ending up in the recycling cart. Does the first clause, how much recyclable materials being generated, is it implied that you also look for recyclables in the trash stream?
Yes, that is part of the process. So you're looking at it from a household level. You're looking at their garbage and their recycling to see what the whole waste stream is, what's being captured, what's not, even down to the commodity level.
Thank you.
So here's a little bit of a different way to look at it. We've always looked at recycling rates as a measure of how successful our program is. And, you know, that's been a simple, right there on the left, you got 800 pounds of recyclables generated by a house. 1,200 pounds is not. So you really come up with a 20% recycling rate. But if you look at what a capture rate is, we're doing those same 800 pounds, we're capturing 400 pounds of it. So we're capturing 50% of the recyclable or recoverable material. So when you go back and you look at our goal here of 90% recoverable material, this gives us a better measure of where we're at. And, you know, we can, it breaks down even to even smaller increments of the type of material. So I'm going to give a couple of examples: Atlanta, Denver, and Chicago that recently conducted this, and it was part of the recycling partnership. And I'm going to switch over to a different slide presentation, I think. Sorry, give me just a moment. Had too many things open. you should see something a little bit different up there now. This is actually from the Recycling Partnership and talks about capture rate studies. So slide. So to tell you a little bit about the way that they did their studies was they piloted roughly 4,500 homes. They started to capture that baseline rates, which we are talking about. They implemented a strategy over 8 collection cycles, and then they did a second capture rate study. They analyzed the behaviors, and then they used those results to roll out a citywide strategy, which I think is a solid method of doing this. So, you know, for the strategy for Atlanta was once they knew what they wanted to target, they did an annual info or mailer, curbside feedback. That's the Oops Tag program that we're trying to, well, we've got approved. We just got to get it going, like a top issue mailer, top issue signage out there. And this is some of the signage, which is very similar to what we're using in our Oops Tag program. So what they did is their focus was to try to get people out of certain putting things in bags and stuff like that. So they, after their campaign, they increased their capture rate from 52 to 66%. That is actually a huge jump. And part of that was getting people to put their not putting their recyclables in bags because it's much more difficult for it to be recovered at the MRF. You can see all the individual commodities. They did it with metal, paper, plastic, and glass. The amount of homes that they had that were putting it in bags fell from 52% of the households down to 22% of households. Massive. That is what I would consider a successful campaign, but they had to start with that behavior at the household level to learn what they needed to do. And another point that they did was they looked at different income levels. This could be, if you looked at other cities, it could be one part of the city versus another. It can be one collection system type versus another. It can be in multifamily to look at the differences in their capture rate study. So I think the whole concept of capture rate studies is what we would want to imagine it to be. Chicago, they kept the same capture rate. They helped, let's see, but they reduced their contamination. Chicago had a really high contamination rate of 28%. From their program, they brought that down to 19%, which is also a really big decrease. And you can see that the bag recyclables only dropped 1%, but the amount of other contaminants dropped to 8%, which was really good. When you look at, yes.
My apologies to you and to the committee. I don't know whether you got my email from yesterday, but I've got to leave. And Wednesdays must be the most popular day for meetings. I'm going to have to leave. I'll see you next month.
Understood.
Thank you.
Bye.
And
I
Pete,
have to
while
leave.
we're interrupting you, would you please, Max,
I have to
put
leave
this
also,
in
so.
slideshow mode so that we can see it bigger?
I wish I could, but it's actually, I can do this.
That's a help. Thank you.
I
Okay.
have to leave also. If I could make a request to possibly get the slideshows afterwards, it's great. I'd like to see the rest of this, but I have to go. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I think we've dropped down below a quorum, but I don't think that we're voting on anything. You have, they also broke it down by weight, which is weight is a whole lot different. Plastic bags, film is one of the things that they were working on. You can see that when you look at contamination by weight, food was one of it's a really big one. But when you looked at it by occurrence, food was a much smaller contaminant. But some of that, food is heavy. But plastic bags, which are a problem per occurrence, was a lot higher. Denver took another approach. Denver had conducted a waste composition study, much like Louisville. They looked at what material was in the landfill bound stream, and a lot of it was cardboard. But their question was, what can they recover more from people that already recycle? So keeping it in that context, they were gearing up to do a campaign on recovering more cardboard. But what they found out was that when they did a capture rate study, from the people that recycle, cardboard was already getting captured at a very high rate. So if they would have conducted their campaign, it really would not have had a very big impact because it's already getting recovered. But what they did find was recyclable metals was only recovered at 56%. When even considering the bags in at 49%. So they felt like that would have been, it's a very valuable material that they can recover. So what they did was a campaign called Yes, We Can Recycle Your Cans. And that's what their information that went out to their community, and social media, cart tags. And the impact of that was recycling loose aluminum cans and Group B went from 47% to 59%. So really it was about a 25% increase in the amount of cans that they were able to recover. So that granular data about what is getting captured was very important, and it helped them understand what behavior they needed to change from the citizens. So that's kind of three different examples of how capture rate studies have been done in other communities. There was some capture rate studies numbers given in our waste composition study. But the one thing I don't know about these numbers is where was these numbers coming from? Overall community results, which I think is probably what it was. But you can see just in these numbers, there's a lot of opportunity, particularly for metal. With a 25% recovery rate of metal, that's pretty daggone low for something that's so valuable. You can imagine that if you're capturing 90% of your metal, how much more value that you have in per ton of recyclables collected. So, that's some of the data that we've got. So we would be wanting to conduct a capture rate study. How much recycling is lost to garbage from households who recycle? What commodities would be most advantageous to target to increase with education and outreach campaigns? How much and what type of contamination is in recycling containers? And what is the best contaminant to start with for an education and outreach campaign to reduce it? And then we would have to decide the different areas of target: low income, high income, suburban, urban, organized collection versus unorganized collection. And then if we wanted to do any other waste streams. So the committee, go ahead, Sarah.
Should we assume that all three of these situations, Atlanta, Denver, and I've already forgotten what the third one was it strictly curbside or did it include drop off?
These were curbside.
Okay,
The methodology is basically you're identifying a target area. You go out and you collect their recycling and you collect their waste, their garbage. They're collected separately, obviously. And then you look at what's in each. And then you can figure out from that particular household, how good are they recycling? And really that's what it comes down to. And then identifying why they're not doing a very good job in targeting that with an education campaign.
So what do you mean here by organized versus unorganized collection system?
Well, organized collection systems are where you have contracted services. You have one hauler in an identified area, whereas messaging can be very consistent. in those versus an unorganized collection area where you might have 5 haulers on a street. And those people, in talking, they might get different mixed messages or the same message in different ways. So, there might be an opportunity there. I'm only throwing that out there as a potential way to target and learn. But that's to be decided and, something that the committee needs to look at. But in the end, I think what we want to do is create an RFP to have somebody come in and conduct these studies for us. We're kind of stretched pretty thin. And to see what it's like. Now, Diane and Karen and I were talking about other cities and, getting some examples of consultants that do this work and getting some examples of their work so that we can kind of get some learnings before we put it out as an RFP. So
Good.
that's what the subcommittee got into this details about capture rate studies. I feel like that they're worth it. I think that it will help and it will complement our marketing and education team that we've just getting ready to put out our RFP for. So I think all these things are kind of working together to give us really good look at what we need to do. So that was what we did at the residential and construction and demolition side of things. I can give
After
a
the
really
meeting, at the end of the meeting, we were very supportive and felt that we should start looking at creating an RFP because the ultimate goal of all of this is to make us more effective at our education campaigns. And until we stop looking at Jefferson County as one big lump, we probably can't target effectively.
Yep.
I find it to be very interesting. Now, these 3 studies were they all completed by the Recycling Partnership?
I believe that the recycling partnership was involved in some form. I don't know if they assisted the cities to conduct their own capture rate studies or if this was part of, they consulted it out. I don't know. I do know one thing. For us to be able to do this on our scale with existing staff would be really difficult. That is why I'm suggesting an RFP to get it done.
Well, one thing I'm wondering is, you were going quickly, but I believe what I was seeing on these graphs is that the biggest change was getting people not to bag. And sometimes the percentage of capture totally matched up with the reduction in bagged. And bagging is more work. So it sure seems like it would be a low-hanging fruit kind of a solution to boost diversion. Do we have any data on how many people are bagging or not in Jefferson County, or we still have to figure that out?
Go ahead, Karen.
Well, I mean, that was one of our top contaminants we looked for in our pilot oops tag programs. But no, I don't know how many.
Okay.
I think we've dropped below quorum now. But is this something staff could put together a possible guide or an RFP request to bring in front of the advisory committee next month?
Yes, we intend to bring it to the subcommittee first.
Okay.
What we've asked them to do is to look at some others, if they can, that are similar, so that we're not reinventing the wheel.
Right on.
Excellent, thank you. Pete, could you flip back to the slides that you just had up? It basically showed the commodities. And it was a bar graph or vertical
Oh, I'm sorry.
graph. Glass at 56%. And that is the capture rate of what we had in Louisville. That's out of our study.
Yes.
I'm really shocked about the metal.
We were too.
We believe it?
I believe it
What-
when you start to look at it as an overall, because you have to look at the percentage of people that don't recycle at all. And when this was looking at what I believe to be the overall system, not people that recycle, overall, that's how much we're losing. I mean, it's an astonishing amount.
I would say a lot of it is due to people, and I know in my neighborhood, if I set out a metal swing set, let's say, on garbage day, it never makes it to the collection truck. It does get recycled, but it's by another vendor who comes by and loads his pickup truck, which is fine by me. But I don't know that we're getting those numbers in our report. And I think that's where a lot of the metal's ending up.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I've got to say the same thing. And I moved a couple of years ago, and what we do, we have garbage pickup and we have yard waste. We do not have recycling. We set out all kinds of things. The last thing we set out, and I tell my husband all the time, it was fans. I said, "There's motors in those fans, house fan or ceiling fan." They were gone the next day. I mean, so to your point, Bruce, that does happen quite a bit. So literally everything I put out beyond the garbage can is picked up by someone and reused or whatever. I'm assuming they reuse it or recycle it themselves.
Last year, we put out some metal, walked in the house, sat down, looked out the window, and somebody was picking it up. I mean, within seconds.
That's fast.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I think
With
it's
the price
wonderful
of,
that
with the price of metal today, that's getting worse.
Meaning
I mean,
it's
it's really, it's
dropping
as
or
high as
getting.
it's ever been.
Okay, that's interesting. So do we take this metal here to be all metals, or do we take it to be beverage and containers and food cans?
For this, these numbers here, we're talking about the curbside collection in the garbage can and in the recycle can.
So I'm wondering how much of this is people eating food out of cans and they don't want to have to wash them.
Well, it could be that our campaign is that you don't have to wash your recyclables. You have to empty your recyclables.
Yeah, that's one of the questions that we might be able to answer at the end of one of these studies.
Because this old health department hand is always anxious about vermin control.
I just want to say, I wasn't sure if Bruce's original comment, because the 24.5% there, that's capturing by looking at what was in the garbage compared to what was in the recycling, correct? So it doesn't take into account anything being scooped up by
I
the
see.
person who was
Okay.
collecting cans or anything like that.
Thank
really
you for that clarification.
The other side of this, when you do a waste composition study, that's when you're looking at just people that they don't have recycling service. And you look and see what's in their garbage can. And everything in there is something that you can capture. I mean, if it's recoverable, that's where you have your waste composition study. And that's probably where you find your most metal, your most cardboard. It just stands to reason that that would be the case. But the education part of that is different than what you're trying to do here, which is improve people that currently recycle.
So my question is, what's the date? When was this data collected with respect to when did we issue roll carts with lids? Because
Oh, this
Bruce's
was-
comment has given
was
me
way
the
before
idea. Pardon?
This was way before then. This
Right.
data came way before then.
So I wonder how much of, it's one thing to walk by and see an open 18-gallon bin with aluminum and swipe it. It's another to open the lid and dig down into a deep cart and steal aluminum. And I wonder if it's better now just because of the different containers.
Could be. It's definitely more difficult to get into a larger container for sure.
Again, we're not counting any metal that wasn't there to begin with.
Understood.
But I would say with the carts, we probably are capturing more, and I would hope, I mean, I think our participation rate may have risen because a lot of people saw those carts and said, oh, well, I haven't been recycling, but I want one of these carts. And I think those numbers from before really show, sadly, how the lack of participation in a program that your taxes are paying for. It's kind of sad.
Well, I think there's also the reality that the 18 gallons are kind of hard on your hands and you got to have the strength to carry them up and down the steps and all that, whereas the roll cart is a whole lot easier on people with disabilities or less strength.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Pete. On that subject, you want to move on to ICI self-haul?
Sure. We continue to discuss the multifamily residential recycling. We're working with the apartment association. We've met with the association, I guess, president or executive director. I'm not sure what JD's actual title is, but we met with them, had a good conversation. We understand that that solid waste management at multifamily properties is a challenge as it is. And we're going to he has put together a group of 10 apartment owners of with various differences. Some of them already recycle, some of them don't. And we're looking to try to run a bit of a pilot program. The committee is looking right now to come up with a way to have some commonalities in what a pilot would kind of look like. There's been a lot of discussion about whether or not that this would be a ordinance, regulation, or guidelines. And at this point, I mean, we have some disagreement on that, but in the end, we have to have the framework of what a program would look like, whether it's any one of those things. The other was the request by members of that committee to speak with Louisville Metro Planning and Design to consider requiring space for recycling containers in new construction. And when I started to look at that, number one, I took it to the board before it came through the committee with any votes. But I also realized that if you're going to contact planning and design, you probably need to have a little bit of an idea about what you're talking about and what we want to do. So it needed to come back and have some more discussion about I guess from a developer standpoint, from the LDC, Louisville Land Development Code, what is actually even there. And it was a good suggestion tonight that we get what's in the code so we can even look at that to see what we need to do. Could be a quick change, could be a no change. And, you know, we also talked with someone over at the Land Development Code, and they kind of felt like it was already there to a certain degree. It's that the complex has to account for its solid waste management, and their take on it is recycling is solid waste management, so they have to account for that. So
It's interesting.
we're still working in that regard. Any questions on that?
No. Thank you, Pete. We do have the next topic is the 109 board. Do you have something you wanted to address about the 109 board?
Yeah, just real quick, some of the things that's taken place. Number one, the board approved the memorandum of agreement between the district and Metro government, and that document's important because it takes into account how we have to expend money that goes into the Metro government accounting system. It has to be accounted for the waste district, the responsibilities of the district, the responsibilities of Metro government. So it's an important document that we've got done. It will be, I think it's a 3-year document. The board did approve the RFP for the education and outreach campaign, which Karen is working with our purchasing department to get that RFP out on the street. It's not out there yet. We approved the MOA between the district, Metro, and Brightside for Brightside's activities as far as litter abatement for the calendar year 22. Andy did his presentation, which was well received. One thing that we wanted to bring to people's attention is the Urton Lane Self-Service Recycling Center is closing. The fire department there needs the space, and because they've merged with Anchorage, and they need that parking spot. And, you know, we respect that. They've been a really good partner. So we've been looking really hard for a new site, and we cannot find one. That area, just everything is so compact and tight. There isn't very many government buildings out there. We're not sure that we're going to find anything near there. So we did kind of identify maybe EP Tom Sawyer Park, but that's quite a distance away. This is our busiest site. It brings in about 55 tons per month, or we're pulling on average 3 30-yard roll-off containers of recycling every day, 7 days a week, sometimes 4.
Where's it coming from?
Residents, businesses in that area. I really think that a lot of businesses are taking advantage of it there to reduce their solid waste needs. A lot of it's cardboard. But this is, it just hit we just put up signs today that's closing March 28th. It went out into our works week, and Karen will be putting it out on social media. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of people that are unhappy that site's closing, but it is what it is. We got no control over it. So we're continuing to look. The closest place is going to be Wicks Mill, which I think is about 5 miles away.
Pete,
Yes.
is there a sign warning people that it's going to be closing up, posted up already?
Yeah, they just went up today.
Could we add a sign that says, if you have any suggestions, please let us know, because there's bound to be businesses that might have some extra space and would want to have some more foot traffic. Maybe not, but it seems like it'd be worth trying.
We didn't, although it might be something that we can include in our social media.
I'm just thinking the people who come there on a regular basis and have the biggest vested interest in its being available to them have the most incentive to help us to find a solution.
Yep. Karen, we can talk to Sal about that.
Yeah.
Do we have
What
the
about
option
this?
Do we have the option to lease a piece of property, Pete?
Well, that's always been on the table, but there's nobody taken.
City of Middletown has no property that they can offer?
I think that when you start to get into that, there's not a lot of space to do it. You know, if you get too far off of commercial, you run into the noise issue.
Mm-hmm.
And you also run into the 24 hours a day, 365 days a week. And, you know, there's probably 300 to 400 vehicles visiting that site every day.
What about the old firehouse that got merged? Is that sitting there unused?
I don't know that there is one. I think that they're continuing to use the same firehouses. It was just a merger of the organizations.
Okay.
And a lot of the lots out there, when you get down into planning and design, and when a lot of these were developed, the parking lots were not big like they used to be. So there's not a lot of space.
Pete, did you look at the old East Governmental Center property on Juneau Drive behind McDonald's?
That was our first look. And
Okay.
it's actually owned by Malloy Properties, and they're in the process of developing that, and they did not want it.
Okay.
Speaking of big, you know that grocery store that was called Big or Biggs, and they had this massive parking lot out there on Shelbyville Road? Could they spare some of it? I'm not even sure what
I
it is now.
Yeah, is it a Target? It may
Well,
have
there's
changed.
definitely a
It's
Target there.
It's all apartments now, Pete. It's
Okay.
being completely covered with apartments.
Wow. Dang.
Yeah.
We have searched that area high and low. I'm convinced that we're probably not going to find any place. I mean, we've turned over every stone that we can think of. But hey, if y'all have suggestions and you see it, send it to me. I've been working with Metro's property group to try to identify places, and they're striking out too. They get the contacts, and you know there is a spot that's right across from there. It's a trampoline park, and it would be okay, but there is nobody to contact. We've been into the place, giving them cards, saying, "Can you have somebody call us?" But nobody knows who to call. And when you go to the PVA, you find the managing and all that other kind of stuff. Nobody calls you back. So maybe they come through all of a sudden, but it's not looking good. Unless there's any other questions on that, the only other thing that come from the board was they're still concerned about not collecting enough data or information on the cost of services in the annual report. That's something that I brought to this committee last year. I just haven't gotten it done. I need to get with the individual haulers that report. And examples of that is right now we ask for an average cost per month for each service, garbage, recycling, and yard waste. But there's so many different service levels and so many different ways to provide those services. We're not really getting a full picture because some people might be on every twice a week. Some people might be on every other week. It just depends. So we need to get a little bit more data on the collection scenarios, the number of households involved in that collection scenario, and the cost per unit of that scenario. And I think it would give us a better idea about what we're looking at as far as cost per household. That's on me to kind of continue to kind of get that done. And that would be it. Sorry.
Thank you, Pete. Next item, any public input from anyone wishing to be heard on any items pertaining to the agenda? Hearing none. And the announcement, the next 109 board meeting will be Wednesday, March 23rd at 5:30 to 7 p.m. Next subcommittee meetings, residential/C&D, will be Tuesday, April 12th, 2 to 3. ICI Self Hall will be Wednesday, April 20th from 3:15 to 4:15. And our next advisory committee meeting will be Wednesday, April 20th from 4:30 to 6 p.m. I thank every one of you for attending and thank staff for their preparation. And we will continue to pursue our goals, and everyone be safe.
Thank you,
Motion
Bruce.
to adjourn.
Oh, yeah.
Motion, thank you, Sandra. I guess we need to end it properly. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
From
Motion
Sandra.
to adjourn.
And then I
Second.
have a second by Sarah Lynn.
Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion? All in favor, aye.
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 Those
We're done.
opposed? So moved. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
Gary,
Everyone be
can you
safe.
hang on?